So when did you live in the house? From when till when?
We moved into Arran Avenue in October 1933. We left Arran Avenue in August 1946.
So tell us a bit about your memories of the house, if you would. Just perhaps starting from your earliest memory, and then maybe we can come forward from there.
Of course, it looks a lot smaller. And of course, when you're small, anywhere's a big space and everybody's tall. So that again, you look small. But I don't remember a lot about it, really. Not the actual house, apart from getting bombed. The bomb dropped on this house. That was part of a stick of bombs that fell through. One in the garden, number 15, the next one on our house, the next one across the road in the garden at 14, or behind 14. And unfortunately in one way, or fortunately in another way, it got stuck between the walls on the landing, between the landing and the bathroom, and it's kind of, whether it was a faulty bomb, we don't really know, or whether it just kind of, because where it landed, it smothered itself. But my father went up and with a bucket of sand, and I think that it was the sand that did it, but it wasn't actually flaring as an incendiary bomb would normally do. So we never knew whether it was a faulty bomb or whether it was just where it happened to land.
And but you were down in the cellar, I think, when there was a big explosion, you were saying.
Oh, the bomb in the cellar when it was the high explosive night. We were just sat in the cellar, just waiting. You've no idea what's going on outside, of course. It's all black and you haven't a clue what's happening outside. And you don't go and look anyway. And I was just sat in the corner, waiting my time, and there was this terrific bang, I presume, and I saw the wall, the outside wall, down the side of the house, came in and went out again. And that was apparently a high explosive which fell on Cumberland Road, which was not very far away.
Tell me a bit about how the garden differs from when you lived here.
Well, it's totally different, of course. In our day, you could see things. Things were not cluttered, as I call them today. You'd see all the houses over there, so you could see them in the back garden, whatever they were doing, and all down here. Well, of course, it's completely different. I mean, after, how many years is it? 60 years? 66, right. Now, I did visit this house once in 1960 because I was in hospital with a woman that lived here. And I did come round and look in it, and Mrs. Hannah from next door was actually in the house at the time. But I've no idea what the garden was like. I didn't come out at the back at all. But then, of course, it was grass, the usual square of grass outside the back. Then you got that bit of garden, which was a ring in the middle with the standard rose in the middle, and the paths shaped round it. Remember the birds used to have the sand baths. Remember that? There was a lot of those, and there was a lot of carnations round there. Then you got the trellis work where we had the roses up, and that divided off the vegetable garden, which was here. There were vegetables on this side, that side probably grew some flowers. Then we grew some rhubarb. Then there was the greenhouse on the left, and the shed, and the garage became, when we moved the shed, became when we got a car in 1935. That was a Jowett, I can't remember, 36. Of course, we had to get a garage, so that was when the garage went on that side. So, yeah, it's different because there was no shrubbery. You didn't have shrubbery. You had space, and you were growing your veg because wars on, going on in a way. A lot of the housing was let. There wasn't a lot of bought property. You didn't buy your house in those days because you couldn't afford it. So most of the houses you rented, and as I say, when we came here, it was all open at the back. Somerton Avenue was built, that was all. And the fields at the back, looking towards the right, looked across to Wythenshawe Park, because although they'd started to build in Wythenshawe, it wasn't on that particular part. Then after Derbyshire Road started in 35, they started building there, and then of course it went on and on. Cumberland Road started just after. Why Siddall and Baines had that I don't know. But they obviously bought that from some, I don't know who owned that land, although it was Baldwin's farmed it, but we don't really know, although Baldwin's lived at the farm. They had a football team of 11 boys, but they made their own football team. And then it went on. I think the idea was with Derbyshire Road South, they were going to go right through. But of course they've got the brook at the bottom. But in the meantime, the war came, so all that went. And you were left with Derbyshire Road cut off into nowhere. The roads were built off, Norris Road, all those, in 37. Went through to Brooklands Road. Norris Road wasn't built. The school on Norris Road was built, opened in 38, because at Worthington Road where we were, it was you went from 5 to 14 to that school. And when they built Norris Road, the older ones went off to Norris Road. So it cleared the school a bit more for us, because Sale was expanding so much. The building, pre-war building, was terrific in the early 30s and mid-30s. And it was really getting what we thought was built up at that time. We were losing everything. But of course the war came and stopped that, so we had a bit of a reprieve. But no, it was, and of course everyone around, they were all, what shall I say, middle class people. They were either worked in banks or, what else did they do? Estate agents, which weren't a lot about. Down there, something to do with the toffee shop, which was known as Long's, down Screw Road. One chap worked for Liverpool Warehousing, he drove for them. Another one was the treasurer of the council, lived around the corner there. One up at the end, he worked at Barton Airport, that was my friend's father, he worked there. That was the car we could tell coming home. And he didn't really know. Oh, one worked in, Phyllis Russell, she was in the Halley Orchestra. One over there was part of the farming family of Baldwins. And they sort of went to work, but you didn't know what they went to work at, because you didn't mix. You really didn't mix amongst people. No, it was nice and quiet. And we didn't have a lot of children about. There were no children about, really. Certainly none on this side. Some friends of ours got married in 1936, and they bought a house on the right-hand side of Derbyshire Road South. And from here, I could see her hanging the washing out over there. Of course, that all filled in afterwards. Before the war, that disappeared. And we actually lived next door but one to that friend event where I got married from. So, and my friend lived round the corner in Wynyard Close up there, because a lot of people came to fill those houses from all over the place. They all came from far and wide, no idea. One friend of mine came from Rochdale, the other friend came from Salford. Now there was countless kids turned up at our school. They'd come from all over the globe really, and they'd come out here. Obviously the fathers worked goodness knows where, I don't know what the fathers did. But of course they all landed here, roughly my age, some were younger. And of course we all got into the school and the school filled up. We used to go on the bus from Sale Hotel, get the bus from there, which was it the number 50 in those days? It became the 41, was it 46? 46 before that. And we'd get the bus there, go to school, come back at lunchtime. Hopefully if we got the bus, if you didn't, you ran like Billy-O from Worthington Road all the way through Sale Moor and back here for you might have egg on toast and go back again. And then after that, you did your 1:30 till 4 and you came out again, caught a bus hopefully. Oh, you had to be back to get the bus again, back to school. And that went on till I left Worthington Road in 41. You didn't have a lot of homework or anything. come to think of it, because actually schooling in the war was was a waste of time in a way, because all the teachers went off to the war. When I went to Central School, the French teacher, he was the youngest and got called up. He went in the Air Force, and that was the end of him. So all the retired teachers were called back. So all our teachers really during the war were what you might call today pensioners. They were all right, but I mean, you didn't, the school, well, it took a back seat because the main thing was winning the war, obviously. And school was a bit of a secondary.
A lot of people that will see this film will have grown up in an era with television, but when you were a child, no television then, of course. So how did you spend your evenings?
There was Monday night at 8. There was Henry Hall's guest night. There was In Town Tonight, when they used to interview people who were passing through London. Of course, it all came from London. There was Arthur Askey and Dickie Murdoch came on during this time. But there was Norcia and Mrs. Bagwash. And every time you hear Tales of Hoffman, it reminds me of Norcia and Mrs. Bagwash, who lived on the top of the flats, I think, where they lived. But these are the sort of stupid things that stick in your mind, really. The corner, of course, they've widened Marsden's Road.
Right.
You see, it's twice the size it was.
Right.
Well, on Derbyshire Road South, the hedge came to the corner like it would do. And in there, just round the corner in Derbyshire Road, were 2 cottages. The big house, the Raft, that belonged to Miss Walkden. She lived there for years and years and years, and eventually she gave that place to the council. I didn't know they owned that at the back, but behind there was a big piece of land which you entered off Marsden's Road, just past Sylvan Avenue. There's 2 houses on there now. That was what we call Jones's Nursery, and they grew tomatoes, plants, and everything. And you could go through onto Derbyshire Road, on the bend there. I always think of going through that gate, and you could walk through to they had a hut at the end, you know, a shed, where they had all these things, and that's where you got your lots of the local stuff from anyway. But it was quite a big place, really. Then it went to rack and ruin after, and they pulled the cottages down. So there we were.
Have you had a nice afternoon?
Yes, thank you, very nice.
So, well, you must come again if you'd like to.
Well, I'd love to come again if I could
Okay,
say.
well, you're very, very welcome. We've very, very much enjoyed having you here.